Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Cool. Let's give it one more minute and then we'll get started. Okay, it just turned 4:06, so let's get started. Thank you, everyone, for being here today at the November CAG meeting. I used to say each time what number CAG meeting it was. I've lost count, but it might be around 39.
59.
That is, okay. So thank you, as always, for being here. And as always, I'll turn it over to Desiree to get us started.
Thank you, Paula. Let me, share my screen. Okay, can you see the presentation? Oh boy.
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, perfect. So good evening, everyone, and thank you for being here. My name is Desiree Gazzo. I am with HNTB Lero Joint Venture, who is the program management, construction management firm joint venture on the Eastside Coastal Resiliency projects. I'm joined here tonight with colleagues from HNTB Lero as well as DDC, who are working to build this project for the community. I just wanted to take a minute. I know Thanksgiving just passed last week, so I did want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving and just happy holidays in general. I know we will meet in December, but I'm not sure what the attendance will be. So I did just want to take a minute on behalf of myself, especially, and just the group and our team in general to wish everyone a really happy holiday season. I think we've been together, as Paula said, for 39 meetings now. So it just, and again, just wanted to extend that sentiment to everyone. So as we get into the presentation, this is the project area overview, which we are all very aware of. The focus area topics tonight will honestly focus mostly on construction progress. We have some items to discuss and a view of our kind of under construction still, but park amenities and a couple of other items. We did receive the letter from the CAG on the follow-up walkthrough items. So we have incorporated several of them in the what we've heard slides, and then the couple that we didn't, a couple of them require a little bit more, I guess, explanation or, a little bit more time. So we'll either, again, provide a response in between this CAG meeting and the next, or we could, have a response for the next CAG meeting. So just the agenda for today is typical, a little hiring compliance slide, overview of contracts, which includes the environmental monitoring for PA1 and PA2. So for hiring compliance, we have 2 Henry Street settlement events that we'd like to share, or one is an event and one is an opportunity. We don't have we don't have the official flyer for the Henry Street Settlement Job Fair. That will be on December 14th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. But as soon as we get it, we can share it with Paula and Tara, and they could send it over to you. So for now, there's just kind of a save the date in here. And then Henry Street Settlement has a youth intern program. So this is some information on that. If you are an employer who needs an intern for the winter, I think it's from January 2nd through April 13th. Henry Street Settlement is contracted with the Department of Youth and Community Development to supply or provide interns during this period, and they could work up to 20 hours a week. I don't know very much about the program myself, but there is information here, and you could reach out to our contacts at Henry Street Settlement as well. So we just wanted to share those items from our partners. For the overview of contracts, not much has changed since the last CAG presentation. Much of the same work or similar work is underway, and we'll talk a little bit more about it in the further slides, the slides coming up. So we'll speak about PA1 construction progress first. That's where we have the largest kind of chunk of information. We'll have about one slide on PA2, and then we have some information on parallel conveyance as well. So for construction activities, the same activities, the esplanade removal, the deep sewer activities, there's still some ongoing that's finishing up. And then the pile install and park drainage work are underway. The flood wall, combi wall installation is ongoing, as well as the fill material placement and delivery. And then, of course, the ball fields 1 and 2, which are under construction, which we have a really great photo of in the upcoming slide. There's ongoing work at Delancey Street. And again, we have been trying to remind the contractor to keep that area a bit more tidy than I think it was perhaps in the beginning. So our CCL Vanessa goes out there to check the site with that and the signage that we added as well. But again, if there are any other concerns, please don't hesitate to send them our way. The Delancey Street and Corlier's Hook Bridge work activity on those kind of abutments and footings are underway, and we have photos for that as well. The passive lawn, as it has been, has a partial closure for utility work. And then there's just going to be kind of the corner here that's by the esplanade. The contractor is going to have to take just a little bit more of the passive lawn to do, I think it's kind of the tie-ins for the, over here. The tie-ins for the wall there and the esplanade. So it's just, I think it's a 30 by 40 kind of corner. And they're going to have to move into that, I believe, next week to finish up the esplanade work in that area. And then in February of 2024, the passive lawn will have to close because that is the area where they will be staging the Delancey Street Bridge first, and then the Corlier's Hook Bridge, which we'll talk about a little bit more in the coming presentation. So though we will have to take the passive lawn, it will be very exciting to be able to see, especially with the Corlier's Hook Bridge right there that you could kind of look down on the construction of those two pedestrian bridges. So that'll be nice to be kind of that close to. So then on the northern part of the park, the Houston Street pile install continues, and there's the kind of pedestrian detour shift over there. The slip ramps are still in use, so as always, please be careful when you're crossing that area. For East 10th Street, there is utility work in progress. There have been some test water shutdowns in that area in preparation for the deep sewer work that needs to happen there. There are ongoing and partial FCR lane closures that continue at various locations at various times, and those are on the, we include those on the bulletins. And then there are some evening work shifts that are occurring throughout the project. So just a reminder of our Field 1 and 2 rendering here, just south of the Williamsburg Bridge. And this is the current progress. The last time we were here, I think we just showed the curb being installed here, but you could really see the progress that they've made. The curb is installed, and I believe these are the upcoming the fence posts that will eventually be installed as well. And then they're having the layers of the drainage layers, etc., for the field that are being installed. But it's, they're really making great progress here, and we're very excited for this to keep moving forward and then open kind of late spring of next year. And then if you look kind of to the back, you could see the Corlier's Hook Park, and you'll see the retaining wall there. So that's from the kind of front of the retaining wall. It's very small, but then this is the construction of the back of the retaining wall. And then this will be kind of the new flagpole area up here. As you can see in the rendering here, that red line is the curve of the retaining wall that's here on the photo. So again, it's very exciting that is moving forward with great progress. And in at the December CAG meeting, we'll have some more construction photos of the front. For the Delancey Street Bridge, which is going to be the first bridge up, this is the test fit of the Delancey Street Bridge superstructure. So that is part of the bridge. It's very exciting. So just the steps of fabricating the bridge is the initial fabrication. Then there's a mock assembly, which they essentially put the bridge all together and make sure everything is fitting right. They disassemble the bridge, and then they finish the bridge with the finish, the paint and finish that it needs to have. And then they disassemble it, finish it, and then they ship it to our site. And then they will, the staging of the assembly of the bridge will happen, like I said, in the passive lawn, and that will be is scheduled for around February of next year. And then once it is assembled and we get the DOT approval for the overnight FDR closure, which we've done similarly with the removal of the Corlier's Hook and the Delancey Street Bridge, and the placement of the temporary bridge, then we will move forward with placing that bridge, and that will be in kind of April or May of 2024. So it's, very exciting. A lot is going to happen in 2024, and we're really excited about it. So that brings us into kind of the, again, as we're moving into 2024, we're also moving into the transition of phase 2. So again, in July, we presented kind of the Esplanade plan, and in response to feedback especially from this group, from other local stakeholders and elected officials, we kind of reevaluated that plan, and instead, the contractor will begin the transition from phase 1 to phase 2 while maintaining the 42% open space for park users. So we feel that this work balances the need of the field and the Esplanade users, and will begin in winter 2023-2024, which will basically in here in December, when the park use is not at peak, instead of starting this transition in summer of 2024 when the park use is at peak. So this is the plan to transition into phase 2. The blue lines here are the deep sewer lines. And if you can remember, where's my mouse? These here are the deep sewer lines. And in winter of last year, the contractor worked on this portion of the deep sewer work in Ball Field 3, where we closed it down for the winter, and then reopened it again for this year of use. So the next section of the deep sewers, including this deep sewer chamber, is right here in Ball Fields 4 and 5. So the closure would happen to ball fields 3, 4, and 5, and the esplanade just associated with those fields. And then the majority of phase 2 remains open from ball field 5 north. And so this then falls within 42% open space, and we have a slide on that in just a bit. And then ball field 6 will remain open until additional phase 1 areas reopen. And we are working with parks to review pedestrian circulation and amenity availability throughout the park. And Parks is also working with the Department of Education on alternate field availability for the leagues that were permitted for 3, 4, and 5. The construction will not impede the outfield of field 6. So this will be able to function normally for youth and adult leagues. And access will be maintained again at Houston Street, 6th Street, and 10th Street. And then the Pier 42 Upland is scheduled to open early 2024 was the latest that we've heard. And then here you could see kind of the main circulation there throughout the park will stay primarily the same. And then as we move into next year, hopefully by we're scheduled for the end of May, the ball fields 1 and 2 are scheduled to open, that kind of late spring area. This area will remain closed. And at that point, Corlear's Hook is scheduled to open as well. And Pier 42 will be, before that, hopefully in the beginning of next year. And just in regards to the open space, as you can see, this is the current condition of open space right now. So the open space is about 22.1 acres, which is 55%. And the closed space is 18.1 acres, which is about 45%. So as we transition into ball fields 3, 4, and 5, the open space will drop to about 17 acres, which is 42.3%. And the closed space will be about 23.2 acres, which is 57.7%. And then once we open ball fields 1 and 2, the open space will pop back up again to about 49.5%. So just kind of a recap, we do anticipate Pier 42 Upland opening in early 2024. And then late spring, we'll see the opening of activities in the phase 1 area. And just a reminder that 2024 does bring that transition into phase 2. So it is coming, and this is kind of where we are with that. So to move forward with some of the what we've heard items, and then we can, I'm hesitant to take questions in between the different projects because we do have a bit to get through. So, well, let me finish this and then we can see. So these are some of the questions from the PA1 CAG walkthrough. There was a question about the IPC litter. The contractors are responsible for maintaining the site and their waste management. So the items are picked up and there is site maintenance that is included in the contract. It is not the intention for anything to be buried within the new construction. There was a question on the impact of vehicular traffic within or related to the construction of the project. And that was analyzed in the EIS, which could be found here. We also have the air quality management program, which assesses all of the potential impacts on the project, and we report on that every month. So that, again, that's a link to the page. If there are additional questions on that, we could certainly review that in more depth, but we have a very robust presentation tonight. For the Houston Street pedestrian detours, we have reviewed the signage several times and we keep making adjustments to it. Every time we are on site, it seems that people are aware of the detour, however, continue to ignore it, especially folks that are jogging and kind of there for fitness activities. They just kind of run around wherever the traffic lets up first. But we will add additional signage in Chinese and Spanish on some of those barricades. The Williamsburg Bridge, the flood protection is east of the bridge piers, so it's along the water. So the piers will be included in the protected area. We have a photo of that in the next slide. And there was a question about the fireboat house. We are working closely with Parks on this and looking to have an update in December. So this is some progress that is happening under the Williamsburg Bridge right now. The cap wall here, the formwork. So this is where they then pour the concrete. And as you can see, so this is the flood protection and it runs again east of those piers, and the way the park grading is worked, it is such as that it is higher at the Esplanade, slopes down a bit to the piers and around the piers. And then again, the park is kind of graded on both sides of the pier. So we're not grading on the Williamsburg Bridge piers. Just a reminder, whereas the park is very flat right now, I think we had discussed at the previous CAG, the new park will be more undulating in its topography. So it won't be just a flat kind of 8-foot, raised throughout the park. It undulates given the different amenities that are there. We are still working on that South Street, Montgomery Street intersection site visit with New York City DOT. And then in regards to the compost areas, Parks and DDC are working to schedule a follow-up meeting with Lower East Side Ecology Center to discuss the design of this before the year is out. For PA2 construction progress, which is very quick, Area 1, as we know, is open. The entrance at 23rd Street is closed again for EDC Solar 1 construction work. The Greenway remains open. For Area 2, we presented at CB6 earlier this week, but we got an update that they are trying to push the opening of the southern portion of the park by the end of this year. So again, we have it here as reopen late 2023, early 2024. But from what we heard today, they are looking to push that opening to the end of this year instead of into next. So fingers crossed that will move forward. And again, the Greenway connection to East River Park is also expected to open late this year once the sinkholes are fixed that are in that area. For AQM, the monitor locations have not changed. For PA1, most of the readings were kind of around the 15-minute mark. There were one or two longer duration, which were, again, dust suppression techniques were applied to reduce that. But again, most of these were kind of around the 15-minute mark, and then the dust suppression was applied to mitigate that. For PA2, which again we spoke at briefly on the CB6 meeting, there have been some long duration alerts. However, they are when construction is not in progress. So again, we do note all of the alerts in these slides. And then again, some of the some of the other duration, readings here, dust suppression was applied again, in certain instances. So we can, Paula, do you think we should go through PC and then do questions at the end, or do you want to stop and take PA1 questions?
Oh, Michael's saying he can wait. So yeah, if you want to just
Keep going? Okay. All right, great. So we'll go through parallel conveyance and then we'll take questions at the end. So here is our parallel conveyance construction progress slide. So from Jackson Street and Water Street. So again, here at the one area here, and we'll work our way down or up rather. We do have water main installation and utility relocation. South Street, we have utility relocation as well. And again, Tanya has been really great with putting out the advisories for parking and as well as test water shutdowns, etc. And as always, if you have questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. At location 2, water main installation and utility relocation, the same at location 3. As we move towards Houston Street, the test pits are ongoing and the water main installation and utility relocation as well. Location 5 and 6, there we have test pits that are ongoing in both locations. And then just this week, the clearing and grubbing was performed on East 20th Street for the location of the Tide Gate Chamber building, which you see here in yellow. So that was kind of a new operation there, and they'll start work in that area. For some construction photos, the first one is the 20-inch water main installation in Water Street and Gouverneur Slip East. The second one is the Con Ed duct installation in Delancey Street North by Lewis Street. And the third one is a manhole in Delancey Street South. These are all from this November. And as you can see, the work is, really progressing here with the utility work that they're doing. I think it's amazing how uniform they can get all these utilities. And then, so moving on with the construction sequencing, as we mentioned, as we moved, kind of north, the Tide Gate Chamber and building work, does need to occur, as well as the excavation for the interceptor gate chambers. And as we move into, again, the end of this year and the beginning of the new year, that work is scheduled to begin at Corlears Hook Park for the, again, interceptor gate chamber there. So just a reminder, currently this is where we are with Corlears Hook Park. The parallel conveyance closure is kind of on the perimeter of the park. And then the PA1 closure is in the Flagpole Cherry Hill area, which they are actively progressing the work there. The status for the Corlears Hook Park work has, again, gone through several stages. The initial mobilization is completed. The test pits are completed. The utility relocation and upgrades in this work is in progress. Again, the utilities need to be relocated before the sewer lines can be installed, because the utilities are above the lowest sewer lines. And now the next step is this excavation for the interceptor gate chambers. As you can see in the next photo, these interceptor gate chambers are about 37 feet by 26 feet and approximately 4 stories tall. So they are massive. These little rungs are ladders, and this is a manhole that you would see on the street when you're driving. So the chambers are really massive, and it requires quite a large area for the excavation. And then This is the rendering of the Interceptor Gate building, which again is, nicely kind of tucked on the edge of Corlears Park, but just between the ball field and then the path that will be reconstructed there and the FDR drive. So the space in this area is really limited here. So as the contractor begins this work, they will need to take about 30% area of the ball field in Corlears Park. So this is the rendering here. So this is the new extents of the closure. The playground is here, and then this is the full ball field. So they will need to take the kind of a third-ish of the ball field as well as the playground area. The use as a youth league field will remain, and parks will coordinate alternative locations for adult leagues that use the field. And it is anticipated that the new synthetic turf will be installed in the open portion of the athletic fields this winter. The full closure of Corlears Park Playground will need to move forward, but the access to the temporary bridge will remain. And this is so we can again start the construction of the interceptor gate chamber, which is a critical piece of the flood protection system, which needs to connect to the interceptor sewer. The contractor will return the ball field to back to parks when the work concludes, and the playground area will be restored, and then conversations on the restoration of the playground area are just beginning. So we'll have, I would say, let's not focus. If we have questions tonight, any questions about the playground restoration, I know I will not have responses to. So we'll have more information on that to come. So then this is just a diagram of kind of the construction, the interceptor gate chamber excavation will happen here. This is where the future building will be. And then this is, again, there's large equipment that's going to have to be here to do this work, and that's they would need for the staging area. So those are updates for this month, and we are happy to take questions. Again, it's 4:37. I didn't read every word on the slides, but you could certainly, again, this will be posted on the website tomorrow, and you could certainly come back with additional questions if we don't get to everything or we're still digesting things tonight.
Thank you, Desiree. Okay, Michael, you're up.
Hi, Desiree. How are you?
Hi, good. How are you?
Long time no see.
Yes.
So going back to the first set of slides, can you repeat again for me the date that you said Corlears would be reopening? You don't need to actually go to the slide, sorry. So did you say May 2024?
We're looking for late spring of 2024. Yes.
Okay. Okay. So regarding the additional closures, I had a couple of follow-up questions. So, and first I want to let the rest of the CAG members who are on this call know that we did have an advanced warning of this. Desiree reached out last week to Friends of Corlears Park, and we had a meeting about it. So I'm not like as shocked and surprised as some people might think I might be. So thank you for that advanced meeting, Desiree. So my first question is the one that I had texted you a few days ago about, does this additional closure also include additional trees being taken down?
Oh, yes. And I didn't get a response on that yet. So I will follow up with that and the number if there
Because I
are.
understand that the additional closure is mainly just for them to have a place to store their equipment and all of the infrastructure that's needed to go underground. It's not actually part of the, like, there's nothing being built or on that land. It's going to be returned back to its purpose.
Correct. Yes.
The other question I had, I think you answered, and that was about the temporary bridge. So that's staying where it is, and access to it is staying where it is.
Correct. Yes.
Then I think the last question I had was, you had said something about the remaining ball field turf would be replaced in the winter. So does that mean that the turf is going to be replaced in two sections? The open part now and then the closed part when it reopens?
So the parks had, under their kind of improvements program scheduled to
Yeah.
restore the turf in the ball field here
Yeah.
this winter. So they are going to move forward with that because I think the ball field is in need of a turf restoration. So that will move forward this winter, which would be great because, this area might see an uptick in use since this part
Yeah.
is closed, moving forward into next year. But then I think in 2025, when the contractor restores the ball field area, I'm not sure if those details have been completely worked out as to if, they'll be in 2 years, a full restoration or just a partial restoration. I'm not sure we have those answers yet, but I could
Okay.
certainly, we'll take note of that. And then when we find out, we can let you know.
Yeah, if somebody from Parks can address that, because I'm just curious as to, like, I mean, part of the reason that the ball field is in bad shape now is because of the numerous seams of different patches of synthetic field. So if we're going to wind up with a huge seam right across the field because it's being done in two shakes,
Two
then
stages, yeah.
yeah, it might be beneficial to either do it all at once at the beginning and have the construction guys cover the part that they're needing, or wait. But I know that there's some folks I think on this call that play sports on those fields, so they might have a different opinion about doing it. I mean, it definitely needs to get done one way or the other. So
We'll take that question back. Not a problem at all.
all right, thank you. That's all I got.
Thank you.
Next is Diane.
Hi, Desiree. So obviously want to go back to phase 2 of the East River Park work, project area 1.
Okay.
So you mentioned that I think it said that those closures of fields 3, 4, and 5 are going to happen in December.
Yeah.
December's tomorrow.
Mid-December.
Mid-December. Okay, so but it will be before the Christmas holidays.
Well, the closure will likely be before the Christmas holiday.
Okay.
Yes.
And so I wanted to ask about the Lions, the football team. I don't know. I know, so I use the park most nights, and I know that they've been practicing under lights. I don't know what their practice schedule is, but I didn't know if you had been in touch with them. Or
Parks
had been in
handled,
touch with
yeah.
them.
Parks would handle all of that coordination. So again, we could take that question back to Parks, but they have been, or I don't know if they have or not yet. So we'll take that question back to Parks, and we could get you a response on that.
Okay. And so then this view, with ball fields 1 and 2 reopening in late spring 2024, that's great, but that serves only a very few people. As we've talked about before, the number of people using the park, the fields versus the number of people using the pedestrian paths and the esplanade and that sort of thing is, a lot higher. So do you have updates on when the pedestrian paths in phase 1 will begin to open so that there is a replacement of the pedestrian space as well as a replacement of the fields?
I don't have a specific update on when particular paths will start to open.
Mhm.
I think right now the contractor is still looking at what will open kind of with the field. So we will, perhaps in December, I'll work to get more of an update on, again, obviously the access to ball fields 1 and 2, which again, I don't know if we'll have updates on that for December, but, definitely in the beginning of the new year, what that access looks like, because that's a big question. But also, again, if any, right now we just say ball fields 1 and 2, but if anything, or what will be opening, also in that late springtime. So we could
Okay.
bring that back and get more
Yes.
information.
Yes, because obviously, yes. When we asked during the walkthrough about the access to the ball fields, they said, oh, well, it's probably just going to be like a blacktop path. And we were concerned to hear that because, we want, as you know, to see those pedestrian paths open as quickly as possible so that, everyone's amenities are restored as other amenities are taken away. Because this is really only for ball players, the way this is now. And that's really not the majority of park users. And then the other thing I wanted to clarify was around the passive lawn. And you said before you talked about the timeline for the closure of the passive lawn to support the Corliss Bridge installment. You said something about taking a piece of the Esplanade. Is that Esplanade down there?
Not a piece. The Esplanade that we were talking about is already under construction. So the reconstruction and demolition of the Esplanade currently, it ends right here, just east of the passive lawn. That's as far as the reconstruction goes until. And there are the way the Esplanade kind of tie-ins work. They need to go into the passive lawn to construct these kind of tiebacks. So just this, like right underneath this, the number 4, the contractor just needs to take, again, like this little corner of the passive lawn area so they could finish the Esplanade work that they've been doing, along the whole rest of the Esplanade, which is what you saw when when we were out in the field. And I could pull up again in the December, we could show you pictures of that too, or I could send them over, but where those kind of tiebacks need to, how they work, and they to pull so that there's kind of pressure on the wall, pulling it back into the park, which will then be covered. It kind of works as a system. It's not just a freestanding wall. There's supports that tie into the width of the park. So that needs to happen kind of right in the corner of that passive lawn. So again, it's a small piece there. And they're looking to kind of move into that area to complete that work. And then in February, the passive lawn will close while they're doing the staging of the bridges. And then it is anticipated that once the bridges are placed, then, again, potentially that the lawn area, may reopen, or again, the compost area is going to be, kind of, so, that all needs to be worked out. But for now, that's kind of the status of the passive lawn.
Okay, so then I just have one follow-up question because I thought, I wasn't sure whether when you said part of the Esplanade, you meant down there by the passive lawn or up there by fields 3, 4, and 5. So just to confirm, does the closure of fields 3, 4, and 5 include the closure of the Esplanade next to them? And if so, why?
Yes, it does. It includes the 3, 4, 5 Esplanade. So that way the contractor can get moving on that part of the Esplanade, because again, that is a time intensive task or operation. Also, it would be a complete dead end to have that part of the Esplanade open, because you would be sandwiched, along the Esplanade in between construction and a dead end. There isn't any, there wouldn't be any way to I don't want to use the word escape, but there wouldn't be any way to get out of there. You would be stuck, again, in nighttime conditions and etc. It would not be safe to leave that part of the esplanade open. So we are closing it at 3, 4, and 5, since there isn't any turnaround or access out of there. There's only one way in.
But to be clear, you're not just going to close it just to close it. You're actually going to work
Oh,
in
no,
it.
no.
They're going to
Oh,
work
yes.
in that space and they're
Yes,
going to
yes.
I see. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, yes. The Esplanade, I mean, that was again in July, that's what we wanted to just do, or they wanted to just work on the Esplanade because that is such a time intensive operation. And that and the deep sewer work, those are our two, you can't get past a certain part of the construction without that foundational work being completed. You can't start building or close parts of things until that the full system of the deep sewer. Again, that's why, due to the placement of the deep sewer chamber, is kind of why the contractor needs to go into field 5, because that is an essential part of the system. It's almost like if the deep sewer chamber were in 4, you might not have to go that far. But again, they need to work on that full system before they can advance. So it's just a function of the system that's there.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Paula,
Sorry.
I don't know who is.
Yeah, I was unmuted. Sorry. On stack, we have Wendy, Christine, and then Dove. So go ahead, Wendy.
Okay.
Hi there. So when the passive passive yard is closed in February, there's no water access above the ferry dock. Is that true?
So when the passive lawn, sorry, which way am I going? When the passive lawn is closed,
Maybe it's slide 11.
right. So when the
No.
passive lawn is closed, I believe the Esplanade will still be open here, but I can confirm that.
And will the parts of Pier 42, it's closed off now. Will that be open again or no?
That should be open, yes. The Pier 42 Upland is scheduled to open in the beginning of next year. So once that is open, then there'll be access down here, from the bridge to Pier 42, Upland and the pier.
And I noticed in PA 2, the air quality overages that were long were at the playground, right? At the Murphy Brothers playground. And I wondered, especially since children are playing there, is there anything, what is the plan for these non-construction overage events? Anything?
So Murphy Brothers Playground is completely closed right now for construction. The Murphy Brothers Playground is an active construction site. So there aren't any children playing here, and it is adjacent to the Con Ed site here and parking lot area. So one of the issues with the monitors that are down in this area is that the only place that this monitor could be located is sandwiched in between the Con Ed facility parking area and the FDR drive. So similar to, kind of similar to our Montgomery Street, South Street location, there is a significant amount of kind of outside or non-construction related activities that happen in that area, which also play a part of the readings there. And if you do want to have a little bit more information on PA2AQM, we could certainly talk about that, again, either at another meeting or off. But in short answer, that is one of the reasons why this area or this monitor is, having kind of higher alerts, because it is within a kind of a peculiar location and there isn't anywhere else to put it.
So I really brought that up because it's akin to what's going to happen in Corlears, where you're going to have heavy duty construction. You show a crane coming into where there's currently a play area, right next to a ball field that's going to remain open. It is going to be open. It is going to be next to construction. And they did just take down a linden tree there. So it's very exposed now to, everything. And now then what's going to happen with all this deep construction work and pump house building to the people playing on the ball field? And are you going to add monitors there?
Yes. As we've always stated, the monitors move with the construction. So as construction moves, the monitors move as well. So if there's not sufficient monitors,
And there's no
there,
concern about, because you're going to be going down, right? You're going down what, 3 or 4 stories, you said, to put in the
Correct.
interceptor gate there?
Mm-hmm.
So I would think that'd create a very dusty situation for people playing on the ball field right there. And maybe it's not such a good idea to replace the turf right now, because it also will get covered in particulate matter from this major excavation going on. So that's for me a concern, a public health concern.
Right. So regardless of if it's new turf or old turf, we have to monitor the air quality. And should an air quality issue arise, then the contractor will have to address that. So I'm not sure if, not replace, the turf should be held up because of a potential problem. I think if Parks is going to move forward with replacing the turf, then we have to monitor the air quality regardless of that. So during the construction, which needs to happen to move forward, as with all of our construction, with construction at Delancey Street, at East 10th Street, there's people everywhere, where we're doing a lot of the construction, and we use the air quality monitoring system to control the dust and the air quality. So unlike anywhere else, the same applies there. And should there be an issue or a concern, then it will be addressed by the team, the contractor, the city, etc. But construction happens, all over the city.
But this is not all over the city. This is right here and part of the project we're talking about. So let me just ask my last question. And it's really about, you have CCLs. They know how to use social media. Why not use social media to let people know that the Houston Street South Side is dangerous, especially if if you say mostly runners, you could do it in all languages and you could get people's attention there, I think, easier than those signs that are very easy to miss. So I just want to say that maybe some social media would help that situation.
We could certainly speak to DDC about that. DDC manages the social media. We do not manage the social media for this project. So we could bring that back to DDC.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Christine?
Thank you, and hello everyone, and hi Desiree. I hope you had a wonderful holiday, and thank you for also including us in wishing us the same. The season is indeed upon us, and that's one of my points here is I really appreciate you putting the coming updates about the compost yard and the firewood house on this slideshow, but we've been sort of waiting, and now you're saying December, it's also a tight month, and I would just really encourage DDC, maybe Jeff, if he's on here.
I'm here.
Okay, to start scheduling something, because December will just be blow by us just like this November and this whole year has. As we all know, time moves pretty fast. So I would appreciate that. And then I just want to make a few comments about the future closures of the ball fields. I think I appreciate you showing the math here, that is great, but at the same time, it really feels very much like we again losing amenities such as the Esplanade, which by the way is now a dead end. If you walk down the Esplanade now, you have to turn around and go back up. There is no way out. Obviously, once an active construction site is next to it, it's probably less pleasant to walk there than it is now. But the dead end exists now already. And again, we're sort of losing space along the water for walking, and we don't really have any, sort of updates or ideas of when any of that will be displaced. I think that, on this slide is actually perfect, that green bubble there, that ball field with questions of how people are even going to reach it it's a percentage in open park, but it's not really a park experience if you're going through active construction site and somehow try to find your way to a ball field that is just a ball field and there is no other amenity. It just seems a little underwhelming in terms of what the community is really given in exchange for, closing a significant part on those are 3 ball fields that are being closed in the Esplanade. And I don't think I'm the only one who would really like to encourage DDC or your team to work through some scenarios of what we can really expect to see opening next, and so we can have a dialogue about what's important for the community. And I think we expressed really access to the water, and walking along the water would be one of the top priorities. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. I know, again, we have been, or the team has been, certainly taking that into consideration. And we appreciate the sentiment. I think it is helpful that PA2 will be fully opened, again, hopefully by the end of this year, which will create a significant amount more of walking space along the waterfront within the new park. So we are, again, grateful for the push that will open. And that connection, I think far exceeds, the closure that's here. Again, I'm not, making what you said insignificant rather, but we are, really happy that that's going to move forward, which will give people more opportunities to walk again in the northern open area. But we will certainly, take back all of the comments. But this transition, really does need to happen and need to push forward so that we can move forward with the scheduled completion and the restoration of the park. But thank you for your comments. Paula, are there any other?
Yeah, Doug.
Hi, good evening, everyone, and thank you. First of all, I want to wish everyone a happy holidays. I also wanted to touch upon, I think the parallel conveyance, we kind of just always go right quickly through it. We mention it, but if we're able to get more details, this is actually happening, in our front yards. These are happening right where people are living. And if we're able to get timelines, a little bit more detail about, we see the points, but I don't know how long we're going to be working on, let's say, number 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. what's the scope, what's the limit, how far along are we on each of these? And I think that would actually be very useful for us. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, we can look to provide a bit more. And in the past, what I'm trying to remember which project area it was for. Early on in the project, we had kind of a chart, and that might work here, where it had the different steps and then it was color, where we were within. So perhaps that something similar to that would work here. So that way you could see kind of the status of each location instead of just the south and the north. But we could definitely look into creating something and providing more on that. Thank you for that comment.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
There's one in the chat from Susan who had to leave.
Oh, yeah.
So I just want to, it looks like the 6 trees that will be removed for the parallel conveyance on 28th Avenue C will be replaced, or is their removal permanent due to the new structure?
Yeah, those will not be replaced because the building will be placed there. We can check to see if there might be 1 or 2, on each side of the building, perhaps. So we could definitely look into that. But where the trees were removed is where the building will be placed. So it doesn't seem like, that they won't be replaced exactly where they came.
I don't see any other questions.
Okay, great. Well, again, please feel free to, send questions along, or if you want to, again, I know as you do sometimes, pull together a list of questions and then send them over to us. As mentioned, we did try to respond to most of the walkthrough questions. We will respond to the few that are remaining, and then we could certainly respond to any other questions that are pulled together. And then, as always, you can use the inquiry tool also, so you don't have to wait. And the inquiry tool we will respond to. So again, it could be a combined question from the CAG, or please feel free to just reach out to us directly.
Thank you, Desiree.
We thank you all again for the time that you take to sit on the CAG. So thank you. It's really appreciated.
Desiree, here's hoping there's no day before Christmas surprise call from you.
I hope not too. Hopefully if I call, it will just be to wish everyone a happy holiday.
Have a good one.
Have
Thank
a good
you.
rest of your night.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
CAG, as always, let's take a 2-minute break before we resume for the CAG only conversation. See you in 2. Ready to get started again?
Yep.
Sure.
Sure.
All righty, who wants to start? We're opening up the floor.
Don't all start at once.
I don't know if people have anything to express that they didn't already, or.
No, I mean, I will add, just for people's knowledge around the Corlear stuff, that ironically, what's funny about this whole thing is that we had tried to get the playground to be part of the ESCR project for many years, and they were like, no, there's not enough money to make it part of the project, so we're not going to do it. And then all of a sudden, because they need it for their equipment, voila, it's part of the project. But I part of the reason why Desiree couldn't really answer any questions about it tonight is that there's a lot of like different players now that are going to be involved with bringing that back to the community, because we have already raised over $1 million in capital funding for it from City Council and from the Borough President's office. So now the question becomes, where does that money go if the playground winds up being redone by the ESCR and paid for by the ESCR money, as opposed to the money that we've already raised, which wasn't nearly enough to do the project anyway. And then also on the call that we had with Desiree last week, Parks was on that call also, and they also want to make sure that, you know, not only is the playground restored, but it's restored in a way that they want it to be restored. So I think that that's going to become some sort of weird battleground for us moving forward. At least, I mean, us Friends of Corlears, I don't think the CAG will be involved in that, but maybe you will. I don't know. Yeah, that's kind of just what I wanted to add, just for people's knowledge and clarity. I don't know if anyone has questions about that, but.
Thanks for sharing that, Michael.
I was not able to go to the last CB3 Parks meeting in November. So I looked through the presentation that Desiree posted afterwards, and I just want to confirm this news that they're going to close ball fields 3, 4, and 5. Is today the first that we've heard this? This was not mentioned at any prior CAG or Parks meetings?
I was not at that meeting either, but I believe this is the first that we've heard about that and about the Corlear's closures as well, because we were asked to embargo everything that we discussed last week until it was announced publicly.
I see. Okay.
And I think Dove dropped off, but I think, you know, to his questions about the parallel conveyance work, I think that what he's mainly concerned about is what, if any, of that work is occurring sort of outside of parkland, because you know, Dove and I actually live in the same building, and I think he's on the CAG representing my building, my complex, East River Co-op. And I think that that's something that maybe we can get some more clarity on from Desiree also, is all of this work happening just in parkland, or I'm assuming that because it's connecting to already existing infrastructure, that probably some of this work is going to include digging up some of the roads and sidewalks to get underground as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we can take that back to her to kind of add on to Dove's question.
Aren't they doing a bunch of work along Water Street for the parallel conveyance now? I think it's more than just parkland. It really, you know, it's also city streets where our sewer runs, because supposedly they're making the sewer bigger to accommodate for more flow of stormwater.
Yeah, I haven't walked along Water Street in a while, but I do know that I guess it would be eastern sort of half of Jackson Street, the part that sort of curves into the FDR service road and then becomes an on-ramp to the FDR, that's been closed for quite a while now because of the parallel conveyance work. Because that's where I thought that was all related to the staging and sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Storing of the equipment for what they were doing along the FDR path within Corlears, but I have not walked Water Street, so it is possible they're doing work on Water Street too.
I'm sort of having a hard time even visualizing how once this heavy equipment even gets out of Corlears, because you know it's going to be massive. Also, this cement pumping thing, that's basically a sister of what's on the other side on the lawn, right? That's also massive. And once they built that, it just feels that's going to be really challenging to get this out, because you know I don't think they will close the FDR for it. But you know, it just seems like just massive equipment.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I have a feeling that they will, I don't know if they'll crane it in and out or if they will wind up having to drive it across the whole ball field to get there, because there is that huge entrance on Jackson Street, you know, the freight entrance or whatever you want to call it, maintenance entrance, that they can bring trucks into. But you have to drive across the whole ball field from that entrance.
I'm going to take advantage of this short lull to welcome Shahida Smith. Sorry to put you on the spot, Shahida, but Desiree had to step away from the CAG for a bit, you know, due to just way too much going on. So Shahida.
Oh, you mean Damaris?
Damaris.
I'm sorry, Damaris. So Shahida is going to take Damaris' place. So welcome, Shahida.
Welcome
Hi.
aboard.
Yeah, and I'm also just really wondering how we can push a little bit harder about you know, this bubble that is the ball field.
Yeah, I was sorry that none of the little leagues were on today's call, because I think they would have had a lot more to say about what we were presented and advocated for it more strongly than we can. But
yeah, well, at the walkthrough, when we asked about the area surrounding those two new ball fields 1 and 2, because one of the construction folks said to me, "Oh, we didn't really think about that. We've been hearing how important it is just to open the ball fields." So I don't think that that's entirely in the hands of the construction team. I think they're being told that it's key to open those ball fields to justify the closure of fields 3, 4, and 5. And so the surrounding paths, the access to the ball field is kind of an afterthought. And I'm sorry to hear that the thinking about that hasn't progressed any, even though we have repeatedly, we brought it up at the walkthrough, we brought it up at the last CAG meeting, and we brought it up again today. And there don't seem to be any answers yet about when those amenities in phase 1 are going to be usable. I think this might be a thing that we would want to add to our CAG list. I know that we've kind of had a moving target there with some of our issues being resolved, but now we have other ones, and we had talked about spending some time with elected officials and sharing our concerns and seeing if there are ways that we can collaborate to get these answers. And so the timeline for phase one seems like a big deal when it's, you know, they're right at that margin now of 42% of the space being open. And I forgot to ask, because now in phase two of East River Park at the very northern tip next to Con Ed, there is some fencing up. I'm sure that's because of Con Ed doing work, right? And so it's not part of ESCR, but it's also space now that we're technically can't get to, although people pulled the fence down pretty quickly. But, you know, so it's
And there's
like,
areas, oh, sorry.
no, I was just going to say, you know,
Go ahead.
It is going to be a very tight squeeze. I'm not even sure that 42% really will be open with that Con Ed closure included and considered. But, you know, I think as Christina said, the bigger question is how do we start to get some movement on these answers for when the other amenities in phase one are going to start to open.
Didn't they give us a new timeline last month? Or I mean, that was CB3 perhaps.
Yeah, and that's partly why I asked the question that I did at the beginning, because I wasn't there and you can't really tell from the slide. Like, it would be helpful to have Desiree narrating it. So I just wondered if anyone else had been there.
They had a bunch of hashed lines also that made it less clear about when things were really going to happen on that as well. You know, and where they show 42% open, they don't include, there's two fenced off sections north of the track that have been fallow for years. You know, there's things like that that aren't shown here that are really not accessible. They're not totally mown down yet. There's still a tree or two there. But it's an interesting, and I don't know if we, you know, look how close that blue line is. I mean, I'm looking at the phase two image right now, the transition to phase two, and the blue line going through the ball field it's really close to that esplanade. And I think it's going to be really tough for them to open any more of it, but it's sad to see. Going to be really interesting when congestion pricing starts and everything else is going on here.
Don't get me started.
It's going to be a very different landscape soon.
The only thing that I want to, I think, bring up also, and I feel like a broken record every time I bring this up, but I just feel like how many of us are here right now from, like, there's like 9 of us, you know, and there's like 30 people on this CAG. Like, where is everybody? You know, and I only bring this up because I feel like there are some people who drop in, cause havoc, and then don't attend meetings for 5 meetings, and then they drop in and cause havoc again. And I'm just kind of tired of that mentality from those people. And, you know, like, I feel like it's the same handful of people that are really dedicated to this. And I don't know how to, like, address that or make people come to a meeting that they don't want to come to. But I needed to verbalize that to feel better. So I did.
Well, I think the part that concerns me about it is I know that many people have conflicts now and then, or even, you know, I know some people have said they have a consistent conflict. And if they're making an effort to follow the notes, stay in touch with Paula and Tara, make sure they're informed about what's happening, that's great. But what concerns me is that we generally don't have a quorum to get decisions made or to take action. And we're faced with this situation now where, you know, predictably, you know, the overall plan is changing somewhat. We're getting new information. We're not getting information that we want about phase one and how that's all going to happen. And we can't work together to advocate for, you know, the interests of the community if we can't get enough people here to have a quorum under our rules and expectations to get things to happen. And so that's what's concerning me about it.
Yeah, I guess I'm curious, Tara and Paula, like, I mean, obviously we all see the emails that you send to people reminding them to fill out a doodle poll or a survey. Like, are the people that aren't attending being active in any way, shape, or form?
Not really.
What does it say in our bylaws about, I mean, I know we've had this conversation before, so I apologize for bringing it up again, but what does it say in our bylaws about like membership? Like, is there a way to maybe like go back to whatever group that person is representing and be like, hey, this person isn't attending this meeting. Is there another rep that wants to?
I think it makes sense that we're at that. There is nothing in, I don't think in the bylaws about that, but I think that sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, and we have done it in the past, specifically like the NYCHA members, and there's I'm sorry, it was Waterside Plaza. They've had a few. Is it Waterside or is it Stuytown? Has had some turnover. So, yeah, and then I also know that there are a lot of people because you know, PA1's pretty much done. That they're not really here for those reasons as well. But we did not want to contemplate or create like some kind of penalty for folks to not attend, because we know that especially this time in which we're doing it is just really challenging. Between 4 and 6 of people do work. And some people do vote, but honestly, overall in general, it's pretty difficult to get you all to vote. But I think we should Paula and I, we can take an inventory and see who we can try to reach out to see if there can be some alternates. But I do know like our biggest challenge, oftentimes, is folks who are already like extremely overtaxed in terms of other obligations that they have, especially the NYCHA reps, because they're TAs as well. And those are usually heads of their TAs as well.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's worth just checking in with people and asking, like, if there is an alternate that they want to have attend or replace them or something like that. All right, I'll get off my soapbox. Thank you.
I think it's an important soapbox. I opened the bylaws. There isn't anything about you miss 3 meetings, but it says that regular attendance at monthly meetings is one of the responsibilities. And they're supposed to inform if they can't do it anymore. But there's also, we need 51%, like you pointed out, for voting members to vote and for quorum. So that's a real little issue there that we don't have it. I will say there is a NYCHA forum tonight at LES Girls Club on is that RAD? Do you know, Shahida? It's about RAD. So I would guess some people are there, hopefully.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think, again, like part of the concern is, people that come to one meeting like every 6 months and it becomes a chaotic meeting because they haven't been here for 5 months and they don't know what's going on. But I think my overarching sort of concern also is kind of about equity, like I don't want like 4 years from now, like people pointing fingers and saying, well, you 9 people were the ones that did this to us. Well, you know what? It's only because we were the 9 people that actually attended the meetings, like there's like all these different groups have representatives, but they're not coming to this meeting. So all of the onus is on us.
It'd be interesting to make a list of what we've been able to influence or change.
Be a short list.
And I'm wondering about Christina's situation, especially, is how can we help you at this juncture, this crazy moment in compost history? Show up on Monday at the rally, but is there anything more we can do?
Next Wednesday. We had a rally today and there's another one next Wednesday. But yeah, I mean, I'm just really each time I have an opportunity at the CAG, I'll bring up the compost yard and the fireboat house, because we're just getting promises and we're not getting any meetings. And yeah, I'll be the broken record on that one. Yeah, until we finally have a meeting. I mean, the CAG already sent a very strong letter that, we really appreciate that the CAG was able to do that. And I guess just being that squeaky wheel is pretty much all at this point you can do, and point out the obvious, that, it's just promises and no action.
I have a question for you. And I have a similar question for Camille, probably. One of the commitments that the city made was to fund a compost yard alternative for you, for the Lower East Side Ecology Center. And then that was cut in the budget cuts.
Mm-hmm.
And then another commitment was to follow a certain, system and, set of expectations with the Baruch bathhouse. And it's kind of unclear whether or not they're doing exactly what they said they would do. Are these issues that either one of you would want the CAG to get involved in, because they are commitments that the city made for ESCR? Or do you think that that would not be helpful?
Camille, you wanna go first, since I've been talking a lot.
She might be distracted with something else.
Yeah. Yeah, and I really well, these budget cuts that were announced are sort of just really pretty devastating. And I don't know what we would do with the if just the 2 million would be restored to build this temporary compost yard, if they pull everything else away from us, right? What are we going to do with that space? We also need ongoing support for programming to really use the space. But, obviously, it was very disappointing to see that. And we're still fighting. And, we had a pretty good rally where a bunch of council members came up and pledged their support. So, as usual, the community composting crowd is not going quietly. And I certainly have brought up this issue, but I think the bigger issue is that this whole, it's like a clear cut, this whole program, also into the out years is just being eliminated with at least how it stands now. And that is just, even if that funding gets restored for Canarsie, if I don't have a staff person to, for example, just be on this project and work with a construction manager and the general contractor, or how we, and then once it's built, we don't have support to actually run drop-off locations. It's a little bit mute. So the question on that is a little bit bigger, but I'm still keeping my fingers crossed that it will get restored.
Camille just said in the chat that she is at the meeting at the Girls Club, and can we table the Baruch bathhouse issue for next time, if possible? So I don't think she's in a position to respond to that right now.
Right. Cool.
But yeah, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I just, I feel like if they begin to go back on their ESCR commitments, that's an issue. And so if there's any one commitment that, the affected organization doesn't feel like it's helpful for the CAG to get involved, I totally respect that. But you know, anytime there might be, or just the fact that they are going back on commitments, like just blatantly going back on commitments. I think that's a concern too.
Yeah, no, totally. And it's very, it's very disappointing when I saw that. I'm like, yeah, I was really pretty shocked.
Yeah. I think it's really sad on so many levels too, that there it is again. And I do hope you're right that it will be restored. I want to ask about stewardship. Some of us took part in before the CAG, before the new plan dropped, there was a study about stewardship in this period between the park, while the park was being worked on. And that was by Goals and Rebuild by Design collaborated on that. Christina was on it, Camille was on it, I was on it, maybe Michael was too, maybe, I don't know, maybe we all were. But in any case, stewardship is really an important part of all this, but yet it's not a recognized park activity. Is that correct? That it's still not considered a real park activity. And the reason I asked that is somebody was asking me for something, and I came across a picture of the new signage that went up in the park around maybe 2019, and it left off Sty Cove and Lower East Side Ecology Center. It says there's a bathroom there's a comfort station in the fireboat house, but not that there's this incredible ecology program. And somewhere I have a note saying that it wasn't a recognized activity. Park activity. And has that changed? I mean, Christina, you have space now in Seward Park, right? As a kind of mitigation. We don't have I don't know if you're getting any kind of, if you feel like it is a recognized park activity now, but I wonder if that's something this group could be looking at, is this interim, how do we learn from this and help other parts of the city who are going to be dealing with the same things? Well, hopefully not exactly, but major park rebuilding at the waterside in the coming future.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that Parks is always talking about partnerships with organizations, and very much, I mean, Michael is an example of a group that I think is stewarding a park and is recognized as a partner. So, I think that stewardship is definitely something that Parks is interested in undertaking. I just think for East River Park, it got just very complicated, shall we say.
Yeah, I think because it's such a large park, and I think that there was like your group that was doing a lot of it, and then there was wasn't there like some small group that was doing parts of it further north, and they were trying to coordinate and whatnot. But I have a very sort of weird opinion about Parks opinions about friends groups. I think our current commissioner appreciates friends groups a lot more than our prior commissioner did. I think our prior commissioner thought that we were more of a nuisance and didn't really care about us and didn't want us to be mucking up what he wanted to have done. But I think that also kind of probably veers off from what this group is supposed to be doing. But I do think that, there is a better relationship with the current commissioner and her staff than there was with the prior commissioner. That's all I'll say.
And I think in terms of the CAG, there's nothing to steward until we can pressure them to get these new sections of the park open, right? And so, while I think it's important, to be thinking ahead to that, I also think that, part of bringing the CAG together as a group of organizations is to keep the focus on, meeting the needs of the community. And obviously they're, meeting the flood protection needs of the community by, doing the construction. But it would be very easy for them to, as we've seen, we're constantly having to say, but that's not how we use the park. That's not what or the associated parks. So that's not what we need. We need something else. And I want to make sure that the CAG stays focused on that as well. In my opinion, I think, Wendy, to your point, like we have made some changes. And like the last thing, that happened was they wanted to close the whole Esplanade, and the fact that the CAG spoke up, in a unified way, I think was a good thing. And I think there was community support. I think there was elected official support, and I'm really happy that happened. I'm sad to see those fields go and the Esplanade next to them. But I really hated the idea of just shutting down the whole Esplanade. And I'm glad that we were able to find common ground on the CAG to say, this is important to us. Let's push back on this, and to find a good spectrum of support across the whole community and our elected officials. I think that was well done. And I'd like to see us do more like that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think our next push should really be like, some, and I want to, just think a little bit more deeply about that. How we really going to articulate, this green bubble in the construction site. I mean, I just, it was such a visual too, it's like this little island of green. Well, good luck getting there, right? But we're making it for you. So I need to just, process that a little bit. Plus I'm processing quite a bit these days. So I'm like the first to say that maybe my focus is like a little scattered, if you will. Yeah. When are we having our next CAG meeting?
For 18th.
Which is a Monday. It is a Monday. This is to accommodate the holiday. It is on the 18th.
About 2.5 weeks.
It'll be interesting to see if other different people attend because it's on a Monday.
May give us have us thinking, guessing, like where we always try to re-examine the date and time. Maybe this is a good opportunity to do that.
Yeah,
Also,
I won't be here because I'm on vacation.
Is it 2:30? Is that
as
No,
well?
it's at the same time.
That's the same time, 4 to 6.
And also CB3 Parks has been moved to Wednesday the 13th.
Oh,
So I think I'm assuming that we'll get some form of an update, ESCR update in that. I think that's on the agenda. Pretty sure I saw that. And then we'll, that would at least give us a few days to maybe get some questions to Desiree, if that's not an update that has enough meaningful information in it for us. Maybe we could real quickly turn around some questions with Paula and Tara and push to get more answers. So we'll see how that goes. Also want to see if they've actually gone ahead and closed those 3 ball fields by then. She said mid-December, she didn't get a date, but that would be around the time that she's saying that's going to happen. So more to come on that, I guess.
So much for input in advance notice.
Exactly. That's why I asked at the beginning if this had come up in any other forum or whether this was just breaking news today, because obviously they don't want us to push back on this one. They want to just say, nope, this is a done deal. It's happening.
Yeah.
the only other thing is, well, I have one last thing, and maybe it's ridiculous, but it's a mitigation thing. And our pool at Ham Fish is, half the size in the summer, and there's no morning and evening swim for adults only. And I don't know that, given the situation with so our park closed. The Tompkins Square will be half closed all next year, including the kids' playground, kiddie pool. But is that something that this group could advocate for? Is that the pool be fully open? And there used to be so many different kinds of people who were walking in the park, and I don't know where they went. And summer people they can't necessarily leave the neighborhood, but the pool is right there, and it's sad to see it only partly open.
I think it's a lifeguard staffing issue, Wendy. They don't have enough lifeguards. I know that Parks made a big effort this year to fully staff dry dock, and to have that open the full pool as much as possible because of the closure at Tompkins. But the year before, when Tompkins was open, dry dock had the same problem. So my understanding is that this has a lot to do with just not being able to get enough lifeguards.
Yeah, and also being just hammered
Well, and
again
also
with
not wanting
budget cuts.
Right. It's going to be rough. It's going to be a tough summer.
All right. I guess if there aren't any other items that we could do, considering the fact that there was quite a bit of updates in a presentation, really circulating it around to those who did not attend, and insisting that they read, just so we can get back to DDC with some significant questions other than the ones that were raised today, in time for our next meeting. And of course, the notification.
Will we be talking? Can we mention to people that? Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I'm sorry. That Baruch Bathhouse will be on the agenda next time, so that I think that might get some people interested in coming who haven't.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, or agenda maybe commitments made by ESCR that are and what is the update?
Mm-hmm.
What's the status, shall we say?
I don't know if we'll be hearing by the end of the year about that waterfront study that DOT was doing, that so many consultants were involved in. Have you heard, Paula, or Tara, that there's a date for its release?
You mean the access study?
Yeah.
The FDR greening study?
Yeah, it's because it's really commitment 48, right? It's to study the areas around the FDR, and maybe when we see the report, there's something we could advocate for, like the crosswalk at Houston Street that would bring people from the south side to the north side before they cross over. That's one. I don't see how that's so hard, but there is no crosswalk there. You're muted.
Yeah. No, we can't hear you, Shahida. Can't hear you. Yeah. Yeah, you're definitely not muted, but we can't hear you. Okay. Folks, if you could direct to the chat.
Maybe Shahida, they did not do a good job getting the word out about the big event they had at the Girls Club. There was a handful of people there, I think 2 CAG members, that was it, Trevor and I. And I asked then if we could be, CAG members could be notified when there is a NYCHA presentation so people could see it, because I think there's some interesting things there that are very low cost to implement that could really help our community. And I don't think there was any follow-up from that. And there was also a little task force created. And I know both Trevor and I were on it to try and help get the word out. And they haven't talked to us about any other further stuff. They just confirmed it today. Well, that's good. So there's a meeting coming up. Okay. So maybe you could share that with everybody in the whole group via email. So we have people can go if they want to go. Many people were disappointed that they hadn't heard about it. Thank you. Cool. Great.
Thank you. If there's anything else, I'm sorry.
Could you just put the date and time so we know? So I just hold that space, or tell people hold that space till the flyer's ready, because dates are flying off the calendar this time of year as we get closer to the end of the year. Thank you.
Well, have a great holiday, everyone. I won't be at the December meeting because I'll be on vacation, but I think one of my other board members will be here. So I'll see you all in the new year.
All right, have a good
Have a
one.
good time, Michael.
Yeah.
All right, thank you all. Oh, I'm sorry, just want to make sure that you all see the date and time for the event.
Okay,
That's good.
great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, all.
All right.
Good night,
Have a good one.
everybody.
Bye.